Hello. Well, I got a bit of time to kill. I'm sat in the car waiting for Tony and Paige to come out. So, thought I'd see if I could get a little video done because I haven't done one for a while. And everything's good. Life is good. Got Martha Moo staying with us at the moment. She's 10 now. That's Tammy's little girl. And she is just, I love her. She's so funny. She's so quirky and so funny. Reminds me a lot of Tammy, but she's her own little person for sure. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, she's so like Tammy," but there's certainly a lot of her dad in her. And Dan is married to Trudy now, and they are doing a fantastic job bringing her up. And I think we've, as a family, have done very well to make her life as normal as possible. She knows who her mum is, and you know, we've never not talked about her, but you know, her mum now is Trudy, and she's just I just love her so much. She makes me laugh. We get on so great, although she's hitting that age now. You know, it's not so cool to be hanging out with your auntie and things, but we still have a giggle, and she's going to teach me to do some more technical things on here, because she makes all these wonderful videos using all these sort of different visual effects and everything, and they're really good. I know it's just way of life now for kids, but she seems extra clever in it. But then we all think that, don't we, of our ones? But yeah, so summer holidays, so she's here. Not so great summer, as is norm now. As soon as the kids break up, the rain comes. Not like when we were kids. Never sort of planned for rain in the summer then, but and I was just thinking about when I went to Ireland. Maybe I'll talk about Ireland. So I lived there for nearly 3 years, I think it was. Might not have even been that long, but in West Cork. I lived in Rosscarbery and Glandore and Lepp. And hang on, Martha's calling me. Wanted to know if I had a selfie stick. God knows what she's doing. Yeah, so Ireland. So I first went over in 1978, I think it was, in the summer. Tammy was only a toddler, only just walking, I think. And my mum's mum and dad were living over there, and me, mum, and Tammy went for a holiday. And I remember being on the plane, and there was 2 nuns sat there, and I said to Mum, "Oh, I wonder if we'll see the saints walking by, marching by." And the nuns were quite took with that. And that was lovely. We had a fantastic time. Some of my other cousins came over a bit later whilst we were there. I used to walk up to the farm up the top of the hill to go and milk the cows every night. But from one night when all the cows were out of the field in the road that I had to walk up, and I was scared to walk past them, I had to get my cousin Gary to come out to walk me up the road past the cows that I was going to milk. And then we went over again when I was about 10, and they had moved house then. It was quite away from the other place, but I went trotting off one day to go and see Teresa and the cows, and I was walking along all the country lanes, because I went on my own quite happily. I obviously knew where I had to go, and I remember walking past the farm at the top of the hill, like on the road leading to Teresa's, and there was 3 boys in the farmyard, and I think they were shouting things as I walked past and being scallywags, like, you know. And years later, I realised we worked out that it was Peter, who I then years later married, and his 2 cousins that was the farm where, so it would have been them that was shouting. Yeah, so, and I remember walking along one day quite happily. I think I was singing away to myself in this country lane, and this big crow, I remember seeing him go up, and he had a potato in his mouth, and he dropped the potato and it landed on my head and actually knocked me over. Bloody stupid. Yeah, and so then years later, Gran had come home, Gran had come home, Grandad had died, and Gran was getting dementia, and she had kept in touch with a lot of the youngsters that were there, that they had sort of took under their wing and sort of adopted almost, and they all kept in touch with Gran, and they all loved her. So before she got too far gone, I took her over for 2 weeks to go back, and we stayed with Tony and Paddy. Now Tony, she was German, but obviously she lived in Ireland, and she had married Paddy, and they had a house, and in the garden they had a little log cabin, which was like a shed basically, with 2 beds in, full of spiders and everything. But that's where me and Gran stayed. My Gran in her 80s. That's what I love about Ireland, is you just roll your sleeves up and get stuck in. There's no airs or graces, and I think that's why I loved it so much. And in that 2 weeks there, I'd gone to the local pub with Tony and Paddy and been introduced to people. So then I started going out on my own, and there's festivals were on, which are just basic street parties and regattas and everything going on there. So it was the best time to go, and I just had the best time. I made so many friends in that 2 weeks, and I didn't want to come home. I cried when we were leaving, and I was living in Plymstock at the time, and I come back and I just couldn't settle. So I decided, sod it, I'm going to move to Ireland. And I did. I gave up my flat and job, and had friends and that putting word out in Ireland that I was looking for work and somewhere to live. And all these things sort of aligned, where somebody put an advert in the local news sheet there, and Tony had sort of been telling people, and then this woman phoned me in answer to the ad. Now, it's very strange, because her husband had a stroke and was quite paralysed, and they were looking for a private nurse, private carer, and that the family actually have nephew and uncle and that who live in Buckfordsley, and my granddad had also worked for them, just purely coincidentally, in Ireland. And she called, and then her daughter got my number off Tony, and she called. So it was like everything was saying, this is where I need to be. And yeah, so I packed up my little metro that was on its last legs, full to the roof with what bits I needed to take, and off I went. I remember the day I was going, like all the family. I mean, now I think, God, I don't think I could do that and just leave my family. But I was so it was about 1992, I think. So I was 21, 22. And Tony had said to me, you must think about this, because Ireland in the winter is a very different place to Ireland in the summer. I don't care. So I moved over in the November. And, went off in me metro, off, left Fairlawn close, left Buckfast, tooted all the way, waving to everybody. And I was like, oh, it's exciting, a few tears and everything. I got to Dartbridge and I realised I'd left my sunglasses behind, so I had to go back. I was tooted all the way in, and they were like, what are you doing? They were all like, oh my gosh, he's gone. But anyway, so then I moved over and I lived in for a little while, and then got myself a little place, and in Rosscarbery, lovely little cottage, and worked hard and played hard. So I was working like 8 till 6 days a week, something like that. Sometimes more if I'd stay on in the evening if they needed me to. I sort of became a bit of the family, really. And they were just a lovely family to work for. And it is very different in the winter there. It's very wet and but it made no difference to me. It was still, I don't know, it was just like going to the pub socially. I was never a big drinker, but for the social side of it, just on my way home and pop in, have a drink in Connolly's. Connolly's a lep. Best pub in the world. I don't know if it's a pub now or what it is now, but back then they had all the walls had posters and flyers from over the years of music acts and things, and had like a little balcony area upstairs, and they would get bands there. And some of the bands that they had there were quite nice. I remember Nick Cave played there, and Hazel O'Connor, a lot of the big Irish bands at the time. They played there, and this is a small pub in this village. I mean, can't even call it a village. It was basically a road with houses along that was on the main road going from Cork to Skibbereen, and this was just a place you drove through. Had about 3 pubs there as well, but it was lovely. That's where I was living most of the time, was in Lap, and that's where I met Peter, which was quite funny because he just chased me basically until I gave in, but we had some laughs, and I remember one day I got my new house, cottage on the rocks in Lep, and I'd just moved in, and it had this big fireplace, and I was so excited to have an open fire. And it had this huge chimney which you could literally sort of go and stand and look up and look right out, and it was a very old cottage, and you'd have to have the window open a bit, otherwise the room would fill with smoke. It obviously wasn't right, but so I went off to the garage and went and bought all my stuff to make my first fire. And I know that they use peat over there. And so I made my fire, and then I couldn't get it going. So I phoned Peter and I said, any way you could come over? And he said, yeah, I'm coming over. He was just doing the cows or something, and he said, I'll be over. He came in, well, he nearly wet himself laughing. He said, what the hell is this on here? I said, what? I said, Pete. He couldn't stop laughing. I didn't know what was so funny. I was getting frustrated. I was like, what are you laughing at? He'd come in and I had a fire. So I'd put my newspaper in and the wood, like kindling. And then I'd put the peat in. And then I put the firelighters on the top. So they were like birthday candles on the top flickering. But he's like, Donna, this is peat moss for the garden. I said, well, I don't know. They use peat briquettes, which are like these bricks that burn for a long time. I didn't know that. All I knew was that there was peat. Now, at the garage, you would have thought that they would have said, there I am buying all this stuff for a fire and a bag of peat moss. But, yeah, so I don't, how would I know? You know, it was just, I was excited to have my first fire. And then Peter used to drive this Land Rover that had no handbrake and no starting motor. The starting motor didn't work or something. So he'd have to park on a hill to be able to jump start it. But obviously no handbrake, was a bit dodgy. So he had a bit of wood that he used to wedge in under the wheel. Think about it now, you'd never get away with it now. But he came over one day to take me into Skibbereen to go and do my laundry. And he parked the van up outside, and I had some boxes of stuff to take into Skib. So he left the Land Rover running, and he came in to help me carry the stuff out. And as we're in the house, we just saw the Land Rover going past the window. And because he had turned the steering wheel at an angle to try and get it to stay there, because it was flat there. So as it went past, it sort of turned. And like I say, this was the main road from Skibbereen to Cork. And quite a busy road. And it went across the road backwards. Luckily, nothing was coming. But then the back end of it went in this ditch and was in a little stream, brook, with the front end of it stuck out. I thought, oh my God, he's going to go mental. And he went over, he's like, you're going to have to go and get someone to try and tow me out. So I went off down the road. I don't know what I was looking for, but there was a building site. They were building a new little housing estate. And there was a bloke in there with a digger. So Peter had said, go and see if you can get a tractor or something. So I goes up to the bloke and I explain what had happened. Oh, sure, yeah, sure. So I gets on stands on the foot thing of the footplate of the door in the digger, coming up the road to the rescue. And we tied he had some chains, put it around the arm of the digger, and lifted the Land Rover out, no problem. But it was just so typical of life there. I mean, my Metro, I was still driving on English plate. I had no tax or anything on it. I think I'd been there about a year. And it had been broken into at the docks. And so I had a bit of plastic up on the driver's window. The back wheel, the axle or something, I don't know what had happened, but my back wheels, instead of being sort of lying like that, one of them was like that. And I used to drive to work in the mornings when I was living at Rosscarbery, and I used to have to go over this little hump bridge. It's all little lanes, and I used to hit this bridge, fly over it, and off I trot. Always met the same people at the same place and give a little wave. And then I remember I was in the pub one night and was introduced to a couple there, and the bloke said to me, "Oh, you the girl who drives the brown Metro?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Oh yeah, I see you every morning." He said, "Just a word of warning." He said, "I work for customs. You need to get that car off the road." I was like, okay. So I did. Let's cycle it to work then. But yeah, that's just how it was. In the pubs, you get locked in. You'd still be there 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And then you get a phone call, and it would be the local guard, the local police, to say, we're on our way, there better not be anybody there when we get there. That's just how it was, you know. And then that pub would phone the next pub, and there was never any trouble. It was such a easy going, lovely. I loved it. It was best time of my life there, and really, really good memories with the friends I made and the families there, the family I worked for. And then I met Peter, and he had a farm and wanted to come to England for a while to experience a bit of life, and we decided to move back, which, you know, in hindsight was good, because I was then back for Dad when he got ill and everything. But I probably would never have left myself so quickly, because it was just so me. It was just so happy-go-lucky. They didn't worry about rules and regulations. And to say now, though, I mean, I've been back a few times. I think last time I went back, oh my gosh, it's probably about 10 years ago now. I think it was, oh no, me and Paige went over however many years ago that was, though, maybe 8. But it's not the same now, obviously. Things move on. It's like they're 20 years. It always felt like they were 20 years behind the UK, but they're quickly catching up. And it's a shame, because, you know, and I imagine COVID must have been hard for them, because pub life and things, especially in rural areas like where I was. But yeah, they were really good days there. Just trying to think. I'm sure there's much more that I could tell you about, or maybe things I couldn't tell you about. But yeah, that was just something to chat about whilst I'm sat waiting, and give you a new little video. Don't really know what else to talk about. So as I've said before, I watch all these music reactions and things, and I'd quite like to do something like that myself. Not a music reactions, but something much more music inclined, talking about different bands and things. Maybe I should go and see local bands and do reviews or something. I don't know. Anybody watching this, give me some ideas what I can do. Because I like doing these videos, but I don't really know what to talk about. So, coming to the end. Got to say bye. Still waiting. How long we've been on? 20 minutes. That's plenty long enough for waffle. So, until next time, take care, be happy.